Have you ever done this before? There's no fucking way. Yeah, fuck you. Fucking way. You know who the fuck he is?
Where you going?
You sure you thought this all the way through? And where you going? Yeah, good.
Doug Liman is the director of the 2024 American action movie Roadhouse, which is based on a script written by Chuck Mondry and Anthony Bagarozzi. It's a remake of the same-named movie from 1989. Jake Gyllenhaal, Daniela Melchior, and Conor McGregor, making his feature film debut, are among the film's stars. When former UFC fighter Dalton accepts a job as a bouncer at a roadhouse in the Florida Keys, he soon learns that this paradise is not what it appears. In Glass Key, Florida, Frankie owns and operates a roadhouse known as the Roadhouse. She's been working with the wrong clientele lately. Every night, a bunch of goons enter, trash the building, and go. A large number of her bouncers have fled, and the police are unable to assist. When Frankie goes to an underground combat match, he looks for boxer Carter Ford, but instead he encounters Elwood Dalton, who even Carter Ford is scared to spar with. When Frankie caught sight of Dalton during a brawl, she understood the type of reputation the man had. Because Dalton was a well-known MMA fighter and one of the most infamous in the industry, the other fighter gave up before they ever entered the ring. When Frankie realized Dalton had discovered a means of making easy money, he very shrewdly used his reputation to his advantage and made sure he didn't have to put in much work. Frankie approached Dalton and offered him a substantial sum of money if he came to her roadhouse and protected her from the daily thugs who created a lot of trouble. Dalton knew in his heart that he needed that money, even if he had no interest in accepting her offer. He understood that soon he would need to pursue another line of employment in order to support himself, because such battles didn't pay him enough to live comfortably. Sitting in his car after it was struck by a train, Dalton had a sort of enlightenment. After escaping the collision, Dalton made the decision to visit the Roadhouse in Glass Key, Florida. When Frankie spotted him at her club, she was overjoyed. Dalton gave Del a lesson that very first day. Del thought he was unstoppable and that destroying the Roadhouse's property and scaring the employees was his destiny. Del attacked Dalton in a haughty manner, thinking he would easily defeat him because he had no idea who he was up against. He was beaten like a punching bag by Dalton, who then tossed him out of the club. Dalton accepts Frankie's employment offer. Dalton first says no. Dalton's experience as an MMA fighter is hurting him. One specific fight haunts him. Dalton eventually agrees to the offer and goes to Glass Key. There, Dalton becomes friends with Charlie and her father Stephen, who own a neighboring bookstore, before making his way to the Roadhouse. On his first day at the Roadhouse, Dalton makes an impression by not only beating up the bunch that is terrorizing the area, but also by bringing them all to the hospital.
What? Let's call this a draw.
It's a tie, Dale.
Fuck. God, I don't think I can ride like this. Fuck. I'm gonna sue you. Oh, hey. Oh, yo.
That one, I think.
Thanks for the right, man.
He first meets Ellie at the hospital, and they eventually become close.
That's not something you'd care about.
Ellie told Dalton exactly how she felt since she was an honest person, and she thought his demeanor was fascinating. While Dalton stays on Glass Key, he makes Frankie's boat, the boat, his home. Dalton, though, was probably not a proud guy of who he was. He was aware that he would never be able to erase his troubled background. He informed Ellie that he was not the sort of man she would want to live a lifetime with, since he was aware of his responsibility for his friend's death. Ellie's father worked for Ben as the local sheriff. Ellie would have shot Dalton or set him up for a crime, according to the sheriff, who placed him under arrest.
There's this cute hotel in town.
The what?
I shit you not, it killed Chauncey.
Worry about it.
Dalton had decided he would not be staying at Glass Key. Dalton felt a bit duped by Frankie, who had not informed him all about the ongoing problem. He confided in Frankie that he was afraid of coming to a place where he would act in a way similar to his previous actions. Ben Brandt is the accountable group to which Dalton and the Roadhouse belong. His family is responsible for half of Glass Key's construction. Ben Brandt was informed that the Roadhouse's new bouncer had physically assaulted his guys. Ben was enraged because, more than likely, he had never experienced such contempt from anybody. Ben's father had a reputation for being a criminal, and as such, the entire community was afraid of him. With his contacts in the proper places, he ensured that everyone knew that he was still capable of doing anything with him, even while he was incarcerated. Before his father announced him to be an incumbent, Ben Brandt intended to find a solution to the lingering problem. Meanwhile, in an attempt to get revenge on Dalton, Dell made the worst mistake of his life by going to see him again. Dell decided to murder Dalton because he was unable to accept that he had been publicly humiliated in his own community. Dalton, though, had other ideas. In addition to giving the man another beating, he also tossed him into the water and gave him to the crocodile. After Ben Brandt met Dalton, we learned that the man intended to build a resort nearby, and the only thing standing in his way was Frankie's club. Ben intended to completely renovate the space, but Frankie was simply too obstinate to give up so quickly. He sent his men to the Roadhouse to ensure she could not do her business in peace for that reason. Ben soon came to the conclusion that Dalton was not someone who would scare him after meeting him. Ben's father needed to know about the problem before he could take any action, so he made the decision to take action. Frankie isn't selling the Roadhouse, even though Ben Brandt plans to purchase it as well. Ben can't develop his idea of a resort for the affluent without the glass house. Frankie first conceals everything from Dalton. She is aware of Ben's financial situation, though. She understands that he will be shut down since he is taking loans from the wrong people and failing to repay them. Ben keeps running into problems because of Dalton. They take note of Dalton's friendship with Charlie and Ellie. While working at Glass Key, Dalton establishes a good connection with every employee at the Roadhouse, falls in love with Ellie, and meets her father, a police officer employed by Ben. Ben's father, who is in prison, loses trust in his son. Hence, he calls a ruthless and psychotic assassin named Knox and instructs him to go check on his son. Before Knox can go and knock Dalton out, Ben attempts to talk sweetly with Dalton, who is reminded of his last MMA fight by Ben. Dalton was plagued by the event in which he murdered a man in a professional mixed martial arts match. Dalton didn't know what went wrong within the man during the match that led to his inflicting such devastating injuries, even if he was his buddy. Despite the fact that Dalton had already vanquished him, he continued to pound him until he passed out. Just as Dalton was ready to walk away, something happened that made him reconsider and made him feel compelled to correct Ben and the others.
Build this place.
I'm gonna just shoot you.
Can I ask a question?
I'm just gonna go right back.
Fuck you! What that asshole on with you anyways? Drugs, probably.
It's
Can you
your
zoom? That's right there's the back.
house. It's just not deep enough. Boats would run. This is kind of sounding more like.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Who's your boss?
Stop! You did see that I had.
Hold that gun. Take...
Motherfucker!
You don't have a gun, too, do you? But the good news is there's a hospital.
Huge problem, and it's something I'm gonna work. What do you mean? Territorial. Who knows why these assholes?
They took my gun. I'm not amused. Put that fucking down. It's like you're here laughing as everything I've been trying to... Yes.
Knox, it's Gerald Brandt.
Where he hides the spare key. Come on.
Do they teach that?
Families, they built most of Glass Key. Asking simple questions.
You're a nice person.